We start the process by going into Texture, Pattern,
a horizontal stripe. Comes out grey, so we go into Threshold to turn it black. Move the threshold slider to the right. I want to save black on top. Horizontal stripe is my first one. I'll call it H1. And then go back to Input and put the white on the top and save that as H2. Now for the verticals, the black is on the left, so I can quickly save that as V1. Oh, first I go to Threshold because the verticals sometimes come out a wee bit fuzzy, and I make sure they're crisp and black and white, and save V1. I then go to Channels and invert to get the second set of vertical stripes, V2. Clearing the canvas for the next operation before going into Photos to favorite my masks. I'm now going to make colored versions of them. So we import H1, and in Gradient we make it blue, and we reduce the opacity to around about 50%. I fiddle around a little bit here, but basically anything around the 50% mark, preferably less than 50% will do. Don't apply, just go back in and load in H2. So I've got the H2 colored version. Now the verticals are going to be red. Go in and load V1. Save. Import V2 and save that as well. The lowered opacity is so that when I do my next bit of blending, I can blend them in multiply mode, and Threshold will be able to calculate the intersections. So we'll demonstrate. Here's the H1 colored, and go to multiply mode and blend in V1. And when we go to Threshold, boom, we get rectangles where the lines cross, and this we can use this in mask making. Now it's the turn of H2 and V2. A second set of rectangles which interact very nicely with the first when we blend the first set of rectangles in multiply mode. There we have the checkerboard, which we can use as our mask for weaving. Now it's time to create the, oh, first I modify the mask. I run edges on it and thicken it up in Painterly, and then do some blurring and levels on it to create a mask which I can use to soften the edges of the threads later, because I have never seen a razor sharp thread edge, and that's what the bare mask will give us. So this little mask we may need repeated using, so we'll add it to favorites. And now it's time to make the threads. Blend in H2 and import H1 as a mask. So that
we're going to use blurring to create the impression of a cylindrical thread.
Having the H1 as a mask allows me to preview the embossing that the blurring creates, and then I go into invert the mask and then gradient restore the gutters, and I save that. And then this time I blend it back in again in multiply mode, hitting the flip y-axis so that we get a series of ridges which make up. And the top and bottom ones don't have top edges and bottom edges, so I'm going to have to fix that. So I create a mask using the shape mask rectangular option. Make sure it's the full width of the image at least, and then slide it down. And I'm going to invert and fill with black so that the majority of the mask is black. This makes them easier to spot in file selecting windows. There we are. So that is for the top, and we blend it back in and flip the y-axis and get the bottom version. Using this mask, have to invert them, but that's a small price to pay for ease of visibility. Now we blend in the blurry horizontal lines, load the top mask, blend in the blurry lines again, and slide upwards, having first hidden the mask bar. That's important. And you've just got to fiddle around to make sure that you cannot see the join along the bottom, so that it blends seamlessly, and also that you haven't slid left or right. So it's a little fiddly job, but it's not too bad. There, we're happy with it now. Save that quickly and then move on. Load the mask for the bottom. Again, import, blend in, and then slide downwards this time. And I think I get it quicker. Practice making one better at least. There we go, save that. favourite that. Do a little bit of housekeeping, rather cautiously, slowly and thoughtfully. I select a couple of images we're not going to need again and delete them. Now it's the turn of the vertical. So that's V2 blended in and V1 used as the mask. And we blur it. Invert the mask and go to gradient to restore the white gutters. And this time I made my left and right column masks before doing the blending of the two striped images. So rectangular shape mask, make sure it covers the full depth of the image, invert and fill with black. This is important, especially with this being a landscape image. A mainly white with a black stripe down it mask would appear as just white in a picker. So blend it back in and flip it on the x-axis this time. Save as and go back to the threads, which actually need to be saved so that we can blend them back in again and flip them. Import the left-hand mask, blend in the vertical threads and slide left. A little bit up, move it down, please. Up again, down a bit, left a bit, right a bit. There we are. And invert the right-hand mask and blend in the vertical stripes yet again and move them right this time. Bit of fiddling around, but it's all right. Down a bit, there. Lovely. Save. We're well ready for blending pretty much once. Now we've favorited that and done our housekeeping. Discipline and self-control. Very impressive, although I say it myself. Here we go again. Although it's not strictly necessary, I've cleared the canvas for doing the blending. So I load in import the mask and blend in the horizontal threads. And then I invert the mask, and that allows us to import the verticals. And this creates a quite nice vertical, horizontal, but rather plain image. I used earlier in textures, in the organic textures, I found a fibrous looking texture and created horizontal and vertical versions of it, which I then colored using LUTS, or whatever. So there's the first one, it's green. Now that it's flattened the thread a wee bit, so I blend the threads back in again using multiply to restore the cylindrical look. Invert the mask again, and after thinking about it for a while, select multiply. Come on, there you go, and import the second texture image. And then blend in the threads again in multiply mode to restore the cylindrical look, which darkens things down somewhat, and I'm going to do even more in a moment. Because I load in the mask edge mask, and in exposure I lower the exposure to soften the edges of the threads as promised. So we'll zoom in and check our work. Yeah, I like that. We'll save that, and that's all for now. Hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you sometime in the future.